Well, welcome everybody to our session. We will be discussing women leading the green transition, industrial decarbonization in action. And with us here today is our board member, Rachel Maya, who will do opening remarks. And then we'll have a fireside chat between Sherry Friedman, Graziel Parente, and Antonia Gadville. Rachel?
Posso só colocar aqui? Pode. Para eu poder. A voltinha ali, ó. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a true honor to join this important conversation on women leading the green transition, industrial decarbonization in action. This dialogue is more than timely, it's urgent. Industrial sectors remain at the counter. Deixa eu pôr aqui, porque eu não estou enxergando. It's urgent. Industrial sectors remain at the center of global emission and the same time women leaders around the world are shaping the solution at the, to define the low carbon future. Today, we gather a powerful network of voice to discuss how we can accelerate decarbonization while building inclusive, resilient, and equality value chain. We must move beyond incremental progress and embrace systemic transformative solution, one that integrates climate, nature, and social equity at the core. At Valley, we see this transition happen upstream, where innovation can unlock massive climate potential. We are investing in high-grade iron one, make the efficiency of global steel value chain. We are scaling breakthrough technologies such as briquettes, which can reduce up to 10% of emission in steel making. So, all through our waste to value program, what was once considered waste becomes a resource, providing that innovation and sustainability not only to go together, but multiply each one. This panel is more than a discussion. It's a call to action, a call to embed decarbonization into core business strategy, a call to foster collaboration across industries and borders, a call to leverage diverse leadership, especially women, as engine for innovation, accountability, and shared prosperity. Let us use space today to inspire one another, to learn together, and to co-create solutions that are good for business, good for people, and essential to planet. Thank you very much. I call now the participation of this panel. Thank you. I love this. Graciela, Sherry, and Antonia. Is that?
Sorry. Oh, you're good? Yeah. Did I walk right in front of you?
No, no.
I think we each have a mic. Is that right? Here you go. Thank you. So, let's see.
Take your time.
Let's find the pictures and send them. Sit on below the pictures. It's always good. A Rachel vai juntar. Isso. Tem dois. Okay, you each. Yes.
can join in the conversation with the question.
Yeah, you can give me your schedule, and then I can jump on the startup Graciela.
Yeah. Because
Uh,
Rachel is the leader of our sustainability committee.
yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. But you can go through your schedule, okay? Senta nada, é, senta aqui e fica na audiência,
Eu consigo definir.
tá bom? E tira a cadeira.
Tá bom. As you wish. Okay.
Oh, hi and welcome. Today, I'm Shari Friedman. I'm Managing Director of Climate and Sustainability at Eurasia Group, which is a global geopolitical risk firm. Today, we're going to talk to two women who are driving sustainability from inside very large, very complicated companies. And both companies have a huge role in the energy transition. Now, for both of these companies, the levers that you face and the challenges, they're complicated and they're integrated with so many factors, right? With supply chains, with customers, with your partners, with policy, and all of this has, from my perspective at least, these geopolitical winds that you have to kind of track, which affect all of it. And so navigating all of this requires very agile and very systems oriented leadership. And so, here to talk about what this leadership looks like, please join me in welcoming Graziel Parente, the Executive Vice President of Sustainability for Vale, and Antonio Gavel, who is the Global Director of Sustainability and Partnerships at Google. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, and just one quick note that I've noticed that these mics only work if you put them super close to your mouth.
Okay.
You guys might have already noticed that in the, yeah. So the first question that I'm going to ask is, um, both of your companies have a really integral part in energy transition, and you're going to be facing these huge demands on your companies. Google, because you have to respond to customer demand for AI, which is going to drive energy demand, and of course for Vale produces the inputs to iron and steel, which are the underpinning of pretty much every part of the infrastructure that we have to build for new energy. And so my question is, how are you incorporating sustainability into the new demand that you're going to have as you're growing so rapidly? And we'll start first with Google, and then we'll go to Vale.
Sure. Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting this discussion. So, as you say, power specifically in our case is very much an underpinning of our business. But we are here at the Climate COP, and of course, underpinning power is climate change and ensuring that we actually are scaling responsibly. And so at Google, we have our moonshot, our commitment to achieve net zero by 2030, but more specifically, what we call 24 by 7 carbon free energy, which is really about how do we procure clean electricity on the grids where our data centers and our offices are actually operating around the world. And coming back to your point about system change, this is what we believe will drive system change, because what having that type of an approach requires is truly working with the electricity market, with the system within which we're operating, to figure out how to bring online the portfolio of clean technology that we need to actually get us to those goals, right? So everything from renewables, of course, we have done vast investments in solar and wind and a lot of the renewable power technologies, but also thinking a little bit medium to long term at the technologies that maybe are not quite ready for full scale deployment yet, either from, well, mostly from sort of a cost and an implementation perspective. So we've done investments in small and medium sized reactors, an offtake agreement for 500 megawatts by 2035, geothermal, and a whole portfolio. We talked about fusion, kind of thinking about fusion as a significant unlock. So for us, it's on one hand having the right type of goal aspiration, and then working with the system and the different players in the system to figure out how to bring online the full portfolio of solutions that we need. Is I suppose the starting point for us.
Excellent. And we'll get into those technologies in a minute. We'll have a chance to dive a little deeper. Graziel, what does it look like in Vale?
Well, I think there are two main topics nowadays in the world. One is AI, the other ones are minerals. So it's good that we have these two industry here. And we talk about critical minerals. Everybody wants to talk. It's so geopolitics, but we have to remember that for that we need a mining industry, right? So Vale is a global company headquarters in Brazil. We have operations all around and customers all around, and we are our main focus is in iron ore, copper, and nickel. So some of these materials are really focused on energy transition, electrification, and things like that, like nickel and copper. But iron ore is essential, as you well said, for everything else. For everything else, from the for the solar panels, for the wind energy, for the computers, for everything else. So it's what we have been doing is to understand that what is so if we are a mining company, how sustainability plugs on our strategy. And in fact, we just have one strategy in the company. We don't have two strategies. It's one strategy, and sustainability is inside. Because why for us? So sustainability is a leverage. It's not a different strategy. Why we say that? The decarbonization of the world is very good for us. Why? Because for that, we are inside the value chain of iron and of steel. So for that, to decarbonize the steel value chain, we need to have high quality of minerals. They are essential for this electrification of the furnaces. So, and we have a very rich endowment of high quality iron ore. So it's essential that we have that to have the electric furnaces really advancing. Nowadays in the world, we have 7% that is a traditional blast one, and then we have 30% electric. We see that in the next decade, we could see flipping this from 70 to 30, So this is going to be a major shift. And for that, our iron ore would be agglomerated in the specific demands of our customers is really key for them to do that. Besides that, what we are doing is developing new portfolios that can do this transition in a smoother way. So a mineral is like we concentrated in like balls, something that like we call pellets, or we call on the briquettes. So the briquettes, that is a technology we developed here in Brazil after almost 20 years of research, is in our scope one, just to produce that, because we do in lower temperature this consolidation, we have already reduced 70% of emissions, which is a lot. And then when we go to our customers, so our scope three, and then we ship our briquettes for our customers, if they don't change too much, they already reduce 10%. And we are working with our partners in the value chain for a full, close to zero, I would say that, which is the replace the carbon that some have, and then later the gas, to green hydrogen. So we have been developing studies on that with our customers and the customers of our customers around the different geographies in the world, because then we're gonna be able to decarbonize the steel value chain and really reach the green steel.
Yeah, that you touched on a lot of things. I think that we're going to get a chance to drill down a little bit more on. One of the things that I wanted to touch on is something that both of you talked about, which is partnerships. And people often think about leadership, and they think about like the one person out there in front leading the army. But it's really, I think, in what you guys are describing, that's not really what this looks like. There's a lot of different partnerships that you guys have to be able to cultivate, that you have to be able to use in order to get to what you want. And so I'd love to understand a little bit more about how you're looking at how partnerships, how you're cultivating them, how you're using them, where the challenges are. And I want to start, Graziella, with you. And there was something that you said that also, sorry, we'll just go back and forth.
Okay.
There's something that you said that really struck me, which was that you have one strategy, right? Which means that your partnerships are not only external partnerships, but you probably have to partner a lot internally. And so I'm wondering if you could address both of those briefly, like what do your internal partnerships and the process there look like, and then your external partnerships as well.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry, one more thing. If you could dig down into a little bit of what you said about the customers of the customers, because I think that's somewhat unique to a company like Vale, who's an original producer of original material.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I love to remember that the SDG 17 is about building partnerships. People always forget about it. So this is where we are focused. When we talk about internally, I really like your questions. Is so we are a supporting, I would say, function for the other areas. So who is executing in the day by day the strategy for circularity? Is my team of mining and circularity. So who is executing the decarbonization on the shipping? Our logistics team. They have to be on that. So who is executing the decarbonization of our trucks, railways, all logistics related? And then how we are doing the energy management, the energy efficiency inside our plants. So this is a collaboration of many. Of course, there is a governance, and we had our board member here. So it's important to say that we have a governance to track that. So we have shared targets with many areas. So it's very important that it's not just about having plans, have good ideas, or have budget. You have to have the governance to make it happen. And so we follow up this closely. We have this shared target with the top executives in the organization, and this is critical. So it's a good way to engage. But besides that, we really want to engage them not just by their pockets or minds, but by their hearts. So the importance that we, as a global company, we need to protagonize and to drive this change. So this is something that really engaged our colleagues inside the organization. Externally, so when we talk about the steel value chain, we are in the very beginning. So us and then our customers, and sometimes they do like a intermediate phase of production for steel. Then we have the final steel companies, and then we have like a automotive company or a computer company or a construction company. So we have to work on a portfolio that produces products for our customers that their customers will willing to pay and willing to buy and willing to try. So this is how it's important to integrate that. One thing we are doing today, and it's really a proof point about that, is an initiative we call the Mega Hubs. So the Mega Hubs, it's an integrated project with the value chain together, bringing energy, the supply, the customers. We have this in geographies where we have a good source of energy. So we are developing this in Brazil. We have in the Middle East, in Oman, we have one very well developed. And then we customize this for the customers of our customers. So this is how we engage, and also not to lose the track here is how we contribute to policy. And I think it's another subject for another one, but how we contribute to policy, because if we are alone, it's just us claiming on the desert, right? But if we have, the whole value chain, then we can change the world, really.
I think that's a really good point. It's not, you can only move as fast as the policy moves. So being able to have that dialogue with the policymakers about what you need is a really important piece of the partnership. And I know that Google does that a lot too. And I'd love to understand, you have a lot of different partnerships going on. I mean, you deal, not just in energy, but you deal also on the waste and the water. And it's a complicated system that you're trying to build that has to do with all of your goals. So if you can talk a little bit about the partnerships that you guys have and how you use those.
Sure. Um, I think it's safe to say that pretty much everything that we do is in partnership. If I come to starting with the energy, uh, most of the first of a kind investments that we do in emerging technologies require a partnership and a collaboration, often with various dimensions. So, be it investing and partnering with a technology innovator who has a proven technology but actually needs a partner to really help bring it to scale into market, but also maybe look at new structures of how we organize kind of the financing of these collaborations as well. So, just as an example, there, as I mentioned, we have a partnership for the procurement of SMRs, and there we.
And those are, can you just explain an SMR?
Small and medium-sized reactors.
Like
So
the small
modular,
nuclear.
modular nuclear reactors, which is helpful and important for baseload energy, basically. So, we
And
need.
just one quick note about those.
No.
They can come on very fast, whereas a traditional nuclear plant can take 20 years. Those
Yeah.
can be, like, once they get commercialized, they'll be much faster.
Exactly. And so it's like the modular size, the modularity of the unit itself enables kind of faster deployment as well. And for that, what we did was what we call an order book framework, where we kind of give a certainty of offtake to 2035 so that company can basically go and have the certainty to raise capital and to invest in and to deploy those solutions. And across kind of, you would say, the technology stack, we have these types of, sometimes, the partnerships differ, right? Depending on the technology, depending on the circumstance. So for geothermal, similarly, we have a partnership and are off-taking geothermal power in Nevada as well, where again, it's a company that has a proven technology, but we really need to partner to help them bring those solutions to scale. So what you see from Google is a lot of what we call like first of a kind deals, because these are innovative partnerships that are trying to think about how do we create the runway for others to come into these technologies and deploy them more broadly. So there's the energy, call it kind of energy commercial partnerships with lots of different structures, creative market instruments to think about how we can, in each case, bring these technologies onto the grid. Another type of partnership is also around what I like to think of as like thought leadership and advocacy. So, you mentioned at the beginning that there is an increased demand for energy as we scale AI. And we need to think about the enabling frameworks and policies or regulations or structures that can actually enable that. And so this is where we partner also with international organizations and think tanks and institutions who can really help have very grounded and fact-based discussions. Um, so the International Energy Agency is an example, who work with governments around the world, but actually do really great analysis and modeling to understand, okay, what is actually happening? Like, what is the actual, modeling and understanding of where we're going in terms of electrification? And so they published a paper last year on AI and energy, or no, it was this year, April, on AI and energy.
Seems ages ago.
I don't know what year it is. I don't even know what day it is. But to be able to look at, again, the fact base and understand, okay, what is happening to the electricity system? What they find is actually we need to decarbonize. If for any of us here who have been working on climate for a while, 20 years ago when we were doing modeling, it is a story of electrification. The entire economy needs to electrify to meet a lot of the goals that we're talking about. The challenge at the moment, though, is that actually electricity demand in the US, not everywhere in the world, but like in certain economies, has pretty much been flat. And so then you start to say, okay, that's interesting. There are new demand drivers coming onto the grid, and actually AI is there, but it's actually proportionally very small. So it's a few percent demand
Right now.
Right, even in the macro, it will always remain relatively small at the macro level, as compared to things like air conditioning, industrial decarbonization, industrial electrification. So the interesting thing there is to say, look, we have this whole portfolio of requirements and needs when it comes to electricity demand. This is something that will enable us to both achieve our climate goals, but also succeed in growth as well, in different economies around the world. So for us, it's really helpful and important to say, okay, let's have a system-wide conversation around what we need to do. We need to unlock grid capacity. We need to think about the regulations. We need to think about kind of permitting and planning. And we need to invest in this whole portfolio of technologies. And again, it's not just for data centers, it's for the entire economy to be able to reach those goals. So it goes everything from like, okay, let's just understand the facts, right? Starting point, let's do some good modeling, do some good analysis, kind of really have that foundation, which then enables us to step back and have the right conversations with the right stakeholders to find the solutions that we need, not just for our work, but actually for the economy at large as well.
Yeah, those are really good points. And you pointed to a bunch of types of innovation. We're going to go into a technology conversation now, and you can keep the mics. I'll start start it, Antonio, with you. But I'm curious. So for Google, new technologies. What I'm interested to know is what you're most excited about. You kind of like gave a whole list of energy technologies. I'm kind of curious to know what you're most. We talked earlier about what I'm most excited about Google doing, but I'm curious to know where you are looking at. And I also want to add two additional dimensions. One of them is that Google AI and technology is also a solution provider. Like as the whole grid is electrifying, as you noted, there's different ways for optimization to use AI for all that kind of stuff. So both on the demand side, on the Google as a data center demand, and also as a solution provider. And I'm also curious because you mentioned modeling, and what kind of like technological changes might you see in the data center demand? Because I don't know that all this modeling is based upon the energy demand for data centers as we have them right now. But we all know that that's probably not what's going to happen in 5 years and 10 years as the beginning. So you could kind of address those dimensions in technology. I know that's a lot. We don't have huge amounts
Okay,
of time.
yeah, I'll try to be quick. Three things. So the thing that I'm most excited about is the second point that you mentioned. So the capability that AI has actually to contribute to the solution for climate, but also for nature, and also for sort of adaptation resilience as well. So at Google, we have what we call a gigaton aspiration, which is about creating solutions for others that enable climate and carbon reductions. So a gigaton of reductions by 2030 is a moonshot. And this is everything from like traffic light optimization, fuel efficient routing on Google Maps, and so on. Solar API, like we built tools for solar developers to be able to identify rooftop solar potential, which enables them to do their work much more quickly.
A little closer.
Sorry. So there's a whole raft of solutions on the climate side. And the reason that this is really exciting, and again, as somebody who's worked on this agenda for so long, is we need these breakthrough solutions. We're in a time when we really need innovation to come into this agenda to help us like fast track progress. And in just 5 of our solutions, so 5 of these solutions, climate solutions, we've already seen in 1 year the ability to reduce 26 tons of carbon, million tons of carbon, which if you put that in perspective, that's about half of our footprint as an entire company. So these are very different things, but I think it's important to realize that the scale of impact that we're seeing today in terms of reductions from these solutions is enormous. Nature, I won't talk too much about it, but I'll just say we just published a paper on nature and AI with the World Resources Institute a few weeks ago. Encourage you to take a look because there's so much amazing stuff happening when it comes to kind of the integration of nature system models, geospatial visualization. We have a platform called Earth AI, which is integrating kind of weather models with population data, and it enables you to do pretty amazing analysis to ultimately be able to help conserve and protect nature. So a lot of exciting stuff there. So to your question about what's exciting, I think that space for me is incredibly exciting. When it comes to the technologies, you know, we need a portfolio. I think there is no one technology that's actually going to get us to where we need to go. It's a portfolio because it's also a time scale. So efficiency, and this is your third point, efficiency is probably obviously the first thing we should all be doing. And actually AI really has enabled us to unlock the ability to deliver efficiency and get rid of a lot of the transaction costs that we see. But data centers are evolving in efficiency incredibly quickly. We use specialized hardware, TPUs, and what we've seen is that in 5 years, what we're able to now see is 5 times more compute power as compared per unit of energy. So you see this massive acceleration in efficiency, the efficiency of the models as well. So we put out a paper earlier this year looking at the median energy, water, and consumption of a Gemini text Gemini queries. And what we've seen is one, the data itself, about 9 seconds of watching television, about 5 drops of water for a text query on Gemini. But I think more importantly that in 1 year, the energy consumption from AI reduced by 33% of that model because the models are just getting so much more efficient. And importantly, this is a business driver, right? If you're in the business of AI and your constraint is power, of course you're going to innovate everything you can to drive efficiency. And so efficiency is the first thing that makes sense. And also just efficiency of the grid, advanced reconductoring, thinking about how we can get more utility out of the infrastructure that we have is another huge opportunity as well.
Do you think the models are incorporating this efficiency? Like all these models that are anticipating huge energy demand, are they incorporating this efficiency you're talking about?
I mean, when we were working with the IEA, we said, look, we need to do scenarios because there is no world in which we have perfect insight into what's going to happen in terms of how this technology is going to evolve. Nobody can predict that. And so I think that's where, if you're thinking as a planner, working on scenarios-based approaches is sort of what you have to do. Think about kind of the median, think about the high adoption case, low adoption case, and the various parameters that might affect it. So probably 100% no model is right. No model is perfect because they just can't be. Like nobody could predict the rapidity at which these technologies are moving, but also the speed at which the efficiency gains are happening, even within the company. So I think that's where we have to constantly reassess, reevaluate, for example, the conversations around power. Where is it? What do we need? And not get stuck in a particular perspective because tomorrow, the next day, it's going to change.
Totally. It's that old adage that all models are useful, but none of them are right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why it's a model. So, Graziel, turning over to you, I think a lot of the technologies that Antonia was talking about are kind of things that people know. They're like, oh yeah, I've heard of renewable energy, I've heard of nuclear, but your technologies are sort of like, they're behind what most consumers really understand. And so I want to take a moment for you to explain to people what these new, first of all, what are you most excited about? Both you and Rachel talked about bricks and about how that works, but if you could talk about kind of what that looks like and how that looks like and I'm also interested to know because it's not consumer facing. So how do you get value for these new technologies that you're putting forth?
It's very interesting because, as you said, we are not a consumer-faced company, so people really don't know, and normally they are very far away from a mine or something like that. So the first thing that struck me it was, all the technology related to geology, to understand exactly the capacities and the risks associated of the exploration. So there is the technology is also very used for safety. So this is very important. And all this modeling you said, like, so using into AI and others to really establish exactly the perimeter that we have to explore, what are the risks involved, how we combine this with all the weather conditions, because our operation is open air. So we have like a group of climatologists, so weather forecast people inside our operations, because it's very important to be aware of the rain, of the drought, of the fires. So this is critical for us. The other thing we are doing is investing and developing with our partners, our suppliers, related to the equipment we need. So when you think about the mine, you normally see these big trucks. There are giant trucks. So we have nowadays, some of our mines are 100% autonomous trucks. And people, so a lot of technology, a lot of hardware, but a lot of software on that as well. And why we do that? Efficiency is one, and safety is the other one. Because when you use the technology for all these autonomous equipment, you reduce dramatically the risks. And so this is very important for a mining operation. So this is another one. The other thing we are investing a lot is all the transportations. So we have been doing tests on also trying to automatize. It's not so easy with the trains, but we are doing a lot on renewable fuels, trying to understand exactly what is the energy they need. Could we have something electrified or not? We have to understand that we are in Brazil, which is the land of the renewable fuel. So it's we don't, maybe something that works in US is not exactly what we work in Brazil. So we have a really a good supply of ethanol, of biodiesel from different sources. So we are investing a lot on this, and we are on the. I can tell you that we are in the forefront of the renewables for industry like ours and our size with such a big, I would say, industry consumer. The other thing we are doing is exactly inside our plant. So the word you said, efficiency, is everything. So we consume a lot of energy. We need to slow down. We consume water, how we reuse it, how we are able to close the loop and don't have any other fresh water coming in is also something that we're working on. And last but not least, it looks like simple, but it's definitely not, is about circularity, because we are an 80 years old company. So the way we mined it 8 years ago is not how we mine today. So in our dams, we find tailings. There are good iron ores. So
Could
we
you just explain
remine
quickly
it.
what a tailing is? Not everybody knows.
Tailing is the waste, to put in simple thing, is the waste of a mining process. So you pick up like a big rock, you take out the minerals that have commercial value, and then you have the rest, I would say, the waste. So we call tailing. So what is interesting is that we are remining the old tailings, the old dams. So nowadays we are producing around 20 million tons, but in 2030 we expect to have 10% of our production come from old tailings, which is a lot. So we save energy, we save the need for new dams, we save we don't need, there is no increase in our carbon footprint. It's exactly the opposite. So this is something we have working a lot. We just launched it here during the COP with the WBCSD, exactly the Global Circularity Protocol with other companies. And so this is one of the initiatives. There are others related to that. The program we call is Waste to Value. So how we minimize the waste and we turn them to value.
10% is huge.
It's huge.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
in the largest iron ore company in the world, it's huge.
Yeah, for sure. So we've talked a lot about, you guys have talked about kind of your style, and in there has kind of been embedded, like, women leadership throughout your style. But I just want to ask a very more specific question about women leadership to both of you. And I'm curious to know, and this is our last question, what advice have each of you been given from either a mentor or somebody who you admire, somebody who you've seen, a woman, about women leadership that you've really incorporated? And I can see you thinking and you nodding, so I'm going to start with
I
you.
have already on my mind. This is the nice question. I come from government affairs and public policy. This is my background. And like 10 years ago, I started to go more to sustainability. And I remember, like, just after the COP of Glasgow, that was 2021. Yes, 2021. This is a nice story because I was flying around, and then a friend said, "Oh, there is another friend that wants your phone because she saw an interview you gave to a main Brazilian newspaper about COP, about decarbonization." I said, "Okay." And then I received the call of this other lady, and this other lady is from a generation before mine, and she was one of the very, very, very female CEOs we had in Brazil at this time. So I knew her from magazines and all that, but she didn't know me, of course. So I was very pleased that she wanted to talk to me, and she said, "Oh, I read in your, I was in the airplane board and said, I loved your interview. I want to, I'm the president of a board. I want to invite you to one of our sessions to explain what the world is doing about decarbonization. What is this COP thing going around?" And I'm a very authentic person. I said to her, "Really, I'm such a fan of you. I just remember that you were on the front page of all the magazines at the time. You were the only female." And then she asked me the most important question someone ever asked me. She asked me, "Why didn't you give it up?" And I said, "What?" She said, "Why didn't you give it up, your career?" And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because I met many smart women during my career, but many of them give it up. Why didn't you give it up?" Because it's difficult to be a woman in the corporate world. And I said, and I think like 2 seconds, and I said, "One, First of all, I have a lot of bills to pay. That's one. That's important. I'm a single mom, so yeah. The second one is that I always thought that I could do something remarkable. And then she said to me, this is the key for women to persevere, is to have, or you have a lot of bills to pay, but this can turn you sick someday, or you really have a sense that you are there to do something meaningful, and this can make you feel better in the days that are bad. So I always think about why not giving up, and I recall to that. So this was a very, very good. It's not an advice; it was a question, and the question was really striking me. Yeah.
But it led you to give the advice to yourself, which is like the best advice. It's all in there, right?
Okay, you did see me thinking because it's a tough question. I was like, there's no one
You know what?
person.
You can give a couple.
Yeah,
if
no,
you'd
it's
like.
fine. There's no one person or piece of advice I think that I've received. Honestly, I think it's a lot for me is about honestly how I was brought up. I was brought up by with my mother, my father, and my mother being, how do I say, like grew up in London in sort of the feminist hippie era, let's say. And so I was always very much brought up also with two older brothers, and it was just like built into me that that there was no question that I wasn't going to go have a career. There was no question that I wasn't going to kind of keep studying. There was no question that I wasn't doing all the sports that everybody, all the boys did.
Which sports did you do?
I do many sports. I live in Switzerland. I trail run, ultra marathon, skiing, climbing, kind of all of it, everything. And so I think growing up in an environment where honestly there was never a question was very powerful, because through my career I've been in so many rooms. I've worked in energy where I am the only female, and it just didn't faze me because I was like, that's cool. We're just here to get a job done. And so I think it's almost sort of this ingrained philosophy of, just do what you're here to do and do the thing that you're passionate about, that for me has been so important. I have had the opportunity to follow, maybe not the path that sort of was envisioned for me, but the ability to say, okay, I'm passionate about the environment, I'm passionate about the economy, and could kind of find my path in this space. And I think having the passion, let's just say the discipline to kind of get the work done, but also just being unfazed by what's happening around me enables me to focus and focus on the impact, focus on the work. And of course, there's lots of hurdles along the way. I think we have to say, like, the number of conversations that I've been in about equity and sort of looking at, diversity, I also sort of know when to stand up and say, actually, no, this isn't right. Let's have a conversation about this, because I just never had a fear of doing so. So it can be difficult. You have to kind of continue to maintain your values and your perspective. Um, but for me, I think it is very much coming from like a grounding of just doing it. I don't know. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah.
But what I'm hearing from both of you guys is you keep your purpose and your vision at the core of what you do, and that like kind of lets you not pay attention so much to the noise around it that might be derailing you. I mean, that was kind of at the core of both of what you guys were saying. Yeah. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming, and please join me in thanking our two panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You were very good. You were. Thank you. Likewise. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was great. Thank you for a great discussion.
Can we invite you for group photos?
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that you lost your battery. Oh, thank you. You're good.